Hello, and good morning to everyone. For those of you that joined us yesterday, welcome back. And I know that you can really appreciate what a great experience it was to have such a diverse but specific venue, right? Where we've got everything focused around commercial vehicles, but a very interesting look at both where it is today and how we should be thinking about where it's going. And today we are going to continue our conversation on my favorite subject, of course, which is the entire humongous, if I may use that word today, ecosystem. I love the fact that when we look at the commercial vehicle industry, there's a lot of things that are being done with the life cycle of these vehicles that are totally different than the retail side of the automotive industry. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about what's so unique about business to business, what's so unique about the vocational folks, right? Because this is really what we're talking about is this group of hardworking, salt of the earth, backbone of the US economy. And as I stated yesterday, powering 80% of our GDP. And how do we serve them? And what does it look like moving into the future for them? And so today, we have a really great lineup. I know that immediately following my session that will start in just a minute, we move into the favorite Jim Press's fireside chat. And today he's talking to some dealers and an upfitter and a fleet management company to kind of get a take on what we're going to start talking about today. Following that, we've got a couple of great panels that are focused on kind of more specific approaches. I'm going to talk with someone from Merits about data and how to measure performance. And then we've got a couple of really unique ones. We've got a professional strategist talk about how to think with your company, any company, and then wrapping up my favorite futurist, Steve Greenfield, and I are just going to noodle on what we've learned over the last couple of days. So, get your cup of coffee and sit down. For those of you that were very smart that registered, you will be getting a notice when the videos recordings of the sessions come out. So you don't have to worry about it. If you have to take a break and go do something, you're going to get first view of that. And keep an eye out. We have a couple of times when you get to do one-on-ones with folks. Those are really fun. It's kind of like speed dating. And then at the end, please, please fill out our little quick survey. And we've got a really great bag of gifts for those for the drawing on that. So I think I've covered everything. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget to start on your calendar. Our fall event is now scheduled for October 23rd and 24th. Somebody's going to have to correct me if I got that wrong. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my favorite people. John Critelli was, I met him a half a dozen years ago. And I have to tell you all that my thinking about the whole industry as an ecosystem kind of stemmed out of conversations that John and I had. And so when I thought about what we want to start talking about today, which is, how to think differently about serving customers going forward. John was first on my list, and I'm very fortunate that he was available. And I'm going to turn it over to him to give you a little bit of his background before we get started.
Great. Thank you, Kathryn. And again, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. And good morning, everyone. My name's John Critelli. I am the director of SDG Sales for Mitsubishi HC Capital America. Think of it as the world of sustainable finance, which is new but exciting at the same time. To Kathryn's point, we first met when I joined Hitachi Capital America back in 2019. I came into this mobility space with a clean sheet of paper. and was asked to sort of develop and build out the financing product line for all things EV, all things charging infrastructure related. And it's been an absolutely crazy almost 5 years now. And we've learned a lot, and we continue to learn a lot. Before that, I was with GE Capital in a variety of business development and sales management roles for 22 years. So my background is primarily GE, but now with Mitsubishi HC Capital America, and excited to be here this morning with you, Kathryn, and I look forward to the discussion that we have with the deck here in front of us. So thank you again.
So as John said, it's kind of a new frontier, right? And today I want to start the day off with this concept of fleet management and what fleet management is. Now, I don't normally do this. I'm a 3 bullets, 3 words a bullet person, but I did want to kind of read this so that we're all on, the same page, which is fleet management. Sorry, for some reason my mouse is crazy here. Fleet management is the management of commercial vehicles owned by a company. The focus on the constant improvement of productivity and operational cost effectiveness without compromising safety or customer satisfaction. I really looked hard for a definition that I thought we could all agree on. Now, FMCs, they help private, public, and government companies, right, to manage one or more aspect of their commercial vehicles. That life cycle, acquisition, financing, asset tracking, remarketing, which is the reselling of it once they've used it, maintenance, fuel, drivers, routes, compliance, safety, so many things. And like this definition says, they can do one or more. So it's already fairly complicated, but fleet management has been highly focused on large fleet. That, when I started in the industry in 2007, I thought of the industry as literally 50-50, large fleet over here, small fleet over here, right? It's a big business. In 23, it was almost $2 billion, right? And it's expected to reach 26 billion by 31. And it's a growing business. And that's kind of why John and I are here to talk about this, is because part of why it's growing is that the definitions are changing. Life is getting more complicated. Things are happening, right? I don't know, John, do you agree with this statement?
Yeah.
It's all about downtime?
I think so. It's all about downtime and productivity and the ability to be as profitable as you can. And what will be interesting to watch over time is, all of these statistics and everything that we're looking at are based on the ICE platform.
Right.
And, it's, I guess what we're all hoping for here is that with the transformation to electrification, that downtime actually gets minimized and gets better, right? That's the whole idea. So, but this is probably the most significant variable.
What have you guys heard? Because I was shocked. I was doing a bunch of research for this, and this $12,000, $20,000. Obviously, those are some really big fleets. The the numbers that I've heard for small fleets are more around 2,000 to 5,000. What do you guys hear out in the market with small businesses?
I think that's accurate. But I think everything that I've seen and read is very, very close to that. So I would agree. But to a small fleet, the impact of $2,000 to $5,000 a day is absolutely significant, right? So because you're dealing with so from an impact perspective, I just think, yeah, sure, can the big guys kind of tolerate that, or they build it into the model, right? But for a smaller fleet, the impact to the overall business, I think, is more significant.
And I think not only the impact of the finances, but the impact to reputation and the other things that are difficult to put into a TCO model. But absolutely, I agree with you.
Sure.
So, we're going to talk about elements of this, right? One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is so in 2008, I was publishing Ford Pros magazine, and it was literally the first article on telematics. That telematics was a new thing, and Ford had created a relationship with a telematics company. I wish I could remember their name. I'm very bad with names. I remember numbers better. But we did an article to try and explain to dealers how telematics could help them, that were the dealers that were selling commercial vehicles. It was very, very early. And of course, data is overwhelming if it doesn't have a purpose, if it doesn't have some way that you're going to take it and use it specifically, right? So early on, I think that that was kind of challenging. It was like volumes of data, like, the proverbial fire hose, right? And then now today, there's a lot of apps and interfaces and understanding of how to take the data and help, right? And some of the main things that have surfaced from that, of course, is maintenance issues, vehicle idle times. I've seen some really interesting data around, the difference between a driver idling all day because they don't want to turn off their air conditioning or because they just don't feel like restarting, and the fuel consumption, right? And different ways to utilize the vehicle, to like routing optimization and just efficiency and safety, right? What are you seeing? John, do you guys work much with telematics companies?
We do, and in fact, most of the telematics are sort of built into the vehicle that we end up financing, right? So it
That's the
it kind of
newest
it
thing, right?
becomes
Yeah,
incorporated in there. Yeah, our observation as a finance organization and with a little bit of our history and kind of looking at this is that we're all hoping that telematics moves from this kind of after the fact reporting, which is here's all this data about what's
right,
already happened, that it moves from that, which is great. It'll help productivity, increase utilization, and all the things you have here, right? But that it transitions to be more of a proactive tool. It's predictive
right,
failure mode analysis or preventative failure mode analysis, where um, it's telling the organization or the driver that you're going to have a problem, and here's how you rectify it before it
right.
actually happens. So I think we're all hopeful, and we've seen some applications in a lot of our reefer financings where you've got telematics that are monitoring the expiration of food, right?
That's right.
And other goods that are sensitive to temperature and time and things of
Mhm.
that nature. And so, you don't want a truck leaving one destination, getting to its final destination where everything is spoiled because of one reason or another,
No longer
for
fresh
temperature or
strawberries,
time.
now strawberry jam. Take it over to the, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah. But I guess my point is that we're watching very closely a number of these companies. And we like to partner with kind of the best in the world
Mhm.
that offer these things. That's part of our ecosystem build out,
Right.
right? And so, but we're looking for that those companies that are going from sort of the reactive data and analytics to the proactive, more predictive analytics. I think we're headed in that direction for sure.
Well, I mean, to be able to do that, you need a volume of existing data, and we're to that point now. I think to your comments, I think we've generated enough data that it can be starting to be, and of course, AI is
Yeah.
going to. We're not going to get sidetracked on an AI discussion, um,
Yeah.
but clearly that opens the door to being able to, go beyond machine learning and actually doing some recommendations, right?
Sure.
So, but telematics are different than fleet management software. This is where you start getting into it's complicated, right? And so this is just a list of some of the fleet management software that's out there. I probably under telematics, I probably should have had Geotab because they're probably the biggest, I think, as an example.
Yes.
Do you have any others that you want to mention out of telematics that we folks?
I think that would be the big one. Yeah,
Yeah,
Catherine, I think that's the one that we see it. It's got a, obviously they've got a pretty big footprint in this
right,
space.
right.
For
Not quite there yet with fleet management software. There's a lot of players trying different things. I do know that Fleetio, who I met 4 years ago, I think, when they were maybe even a little longer getting started, they were targeting small fleet, and they've created some relationships with some OEMs. So I know that Ford white labels Fleetio for their dealer program. So we'll talk a little bit about where all these things are ending up and how people can participate. But any of these that you have any specific comments on?
I don't have specific comments on it. Obviously, I think what we're seeing in the telematics space is the same thing we're seeing in our industry overall, which is, lots of mergers,
Yep.
lots of acquisition activity, lots of partnerships,
Yes.
combining capabilities, that kind of thing. So
Connecting the
this
dots,
is not,
right, John?
yeah,
Connecting the dots.
right. It is about connecting the dots, but it is also about the level of I'll say disruption in a good
Yeah,
way, right? But it's a level of disruption that I think we're going to see happen more frequently
right.
than we've ever seen it happen before.
Yeah, it's so complicated. I love this space. I love what's happening because what it does is it values and fosters collaboration. And having started back in 2007 in the industry, loved the industry, loved the people, but there wasn't so much of that. There wasn't any of that really going on. And that was partly
That's
because
right.
of a lack of technology, but it was also partly because, it was an older industry. And, let's agree that we have the right to say that, sometimes as people get older, they don't like to change so much. Anyway, so some of the top fleet management companies, of course, they've been around for a while, right? They've been in business. Now there has been some mergers and
Yep.
some, acquisitions and stuff like that. We do have a good understanding of a number of them, but other than enterprise and maybe a few, maybe Mike Albert, and they're just, and I guess Ewald, they're most of them are focused on large fleet. Is that how you understand it, John?
Yeah, I would say that the list of names here, which you're right, there's been a lot of recent merger activity and organizational change activity that's happened in the space. But I think when people think about FMC, right, they think about it's a large fleet, it's Class 8, it's private or public, and it's for the heavy duty guys only, right? And
Mhm.
I think that what we'll see over time is that, and sort of the space that we want to help participate in and play in, is that smaller fleet,
Right.
light duty, medium duty, smaller fleet, dealer based model. And so,
And a few cities
but I
have
think,
started recognizing that. Holman
yes,
launched their Holman Small Business Solutions, and Merchants has been doing a little bit around that, right? So,
yes, yep. And I think just like what you and I love most to do is we want to help our dealers sell more trucks.
yep.
Right? At the end of the day, that's what we want to do. And if the customer is looking for a solution that is kind of FMC oriented,
Yeah,
then they don't have to have 50 Class 8 vehicles to get there, right? There's something that can be done on a little bit of a smaller scale. So
absolutely. Yeah. And also other services that come along with that, right? So here's just kind of how I've seen the industry start kind of doing things, right? Like I'm going to start with the targeted services in the bottom right, which is, Cox purchased Dickinson, right? They've got, and that's more around maintenance, but what happens is you start with one thing, right? And then you see that by building on that, building more services on that, if there's opportunity that you can expand your business, right? So what happens is we end up with lots of overlaps, would be the way I would describe it, right? So I actually have Geotab here because they are doing some things around this now, right? So then, of course, I already mentioned the OEMs. Ford Pro has now fleet management as part of their service that they're asking their dealers. And then I don't know if you saw Stellantis's big announcement, Stellantis One Pro, which is they're throwing the gauntlet out there and saying we're going to do this as well too, and their Ram Pro product now. So we kind of expand. Of course, there's GM's Involve, which I should put on here. That's this whole holistic approach to serving the customer. And I know that you guys have thought that way forever. That's why you're on the top of the list. But some of the others, GM Financial is actually putting together some fleet management stuff. And I'm not sure who they finally settled on as the platform data system they're going to use. So I won't mention who I think it is, but and then Ally, I think, is considering that. I think they're maybe a little bit not formed on this yet, but that's kind of how they're thinking. And then, of course, like where it all starts, the dealerships, right? They are being asked to provide mobile services to figure out how to track what's going on, to help their customers, and of course, how to finance them. And that's really a big thing now, especially with the interest rates, right?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I think overall on the dealership side, right, is that the dealers that have been around for a long time, several decades, and I think we both know those dealerships that are fifth or sixth generation, family owned operations, and so their profitability model has stayed relatively the same for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that this transformation to electrification is changing the way the commercial truck dealer makes money. Mm-hmm. Not like a light switch, but over time, there'll be significant change. We realize as a finance company, and we realized it a long time ago when I first came on board, is, the days of here's a lease, here's a loan, and here's a track lease are over. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, right, those are the traditional finance offerings that are out there. This combination of shared economics and different services. And we realize as a finance company that we don't have to do it alone anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not an all or nothing thing. We love partnerships. Mm-hmm. And we want to build out our ecosystem to better serve the dealer and better serve the commercial truck customer. So, I think we want to play a role in helping the dealer change that profitability model over time, which we think is in this fleet management space for sure, Kathryn. I really think that this plays a major role in that change.
And I would say to any dealer listening that to not be afraid, of thinking out of the box. And B2B has one very clear differentiation, which is relationship building. But that concept of relationship building is so powerful for a company to go from, transactional, promotional, sales, all of that kind of stuff on the retail side to be truly understanding what a relationship B2B business is going to give that dealership a heads up, a foot up on scaling and growing their whole business, right? And
Yeah.
and this kind of complete package service, and every element of it, we or you have professional partners to help with thinking that way and to have a variety of choices, because that's the other thing. I get it. I think of
Yep.
dealers as kind of being little entrepreneurs, not little, big entrepreneurs, right? And so they
Yes.
want to design their business the way they want to run their business. And so constantly thinking about that. And like how many want to focus on mobile? How many want to focus on getting their service queued up to be better at this? And two little factoids that I'll mention right now. Number one, overall, not the great ones, but overall, dealerships lose 85% of their commercial service because of thinking and how they're not prioritizing just what we showed on the previous slide, that these poor customers are losing $2,000 to $5,000 a day. And if you aren't tuned into that and helping them, then you don't have their business, right? Period. And the dealer loses 85% of the financing because
Right.
they haven't addressed that business need, which should be very easy, because right now the business is using their local bank and their a credit line. And if you could just say, hey, don't do that, save that for your business, come over here, this is just like extra gravy for you, right? I mean, anyway, sorry, I get a little excited.
No, it's a great point, and that's exactly what we try to encourage people to do, is to utilize different forms of capital, right, to preserve their cash position or their own capital lines to grow their business, to do what they do best,
Yes.
and to invest that money in where it's going to make the largest return. Um, I think it's all those things, and then for the commercial dealer that has all this ICE platform experience, trends, data, years and years and years of cost analysis, is that we're going to move from that platform to a mix, right, of ICE and EV over
Right.
time, and
Mhm.
maybe at some point to a full clean technology solution in future years. But I think we have to be prepared to bundle both.
Yeah.
So there's an asset class change that is going to happen here that impacts, what are the tracking services for ICE versus the tracking services for EV,
Mhm.
and how does that impact kind of the model, right? So lots
It's
to think
more
about.
complicated. So having partners that help, hold the dealer's hand to help the dealer hold the customer's hand, right? And to me, what I also like about it is that whenever there's something external that you have no control over that's making things change, it's a great time. A lot of people look at that and they panic, or they don't want to change or whatever. But to me, it's always that's when you can actually accomplish the most internally in your organization, because I don't know how. I'll just say it in a really simple way. You have an excuse to make people change, right? And
Right.
that's a good thing,
Yep.
because it allows you to
Sure is.
analyze what part of change could be good for you, what opportunities you could open up, right?
Yes.
So just like we were talking about, how advanced fuels will change things. So, you know, what do you think? Like, but do you have any pictures, like in you're much more deep in it than I am on a day-to-day basis, although we just launched, I don't know if you know this, John, I didn't put a slide in here, but we just launched New Propel, NUPROPEL, on Convoy, and it's also available, newpropel.com, which is the concept that there's so much going on in the advanced fuel world that we felt compelled. We felt, kind of, because we love the industry, that we wanted to
Yeah.
collect, curate, and provide content around this, because there's so much happening. It's not just that we're trying to give everybody everything. It's more like, what are things that are happening that are kind of like being neutral. I'll use an old school statement, like kind of trying to be Switzerland, right? We're not trying to push any concept forward. We're trying to make sure the data and the information is accurate and neutral, right?
That's
So
right. Yep,
we just
that's
started
correct.
launched that in December. We have some really great resources on newpropel.com, and some great articles and some things that we're building. And by the way, I would invite anyone that's listening right now to please go take a look and then tell us what else would help you to have one place to go, right, where you can follow what's going on and to understand adoption and what that means to you specifically, right? Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's why these three things end in a question mark. So my feeling is that you know, FMC data, which we have collected over the years, is primarily 100% ICE data. Right. It may be a small sliver of alternate fuel, EV, or other clean tech data related, but how and when and to what degree is that going to shift over time? So I think that's pretty important. And the same is true with telematics and downtime, which is, yeah, it's gonna change, and we're hoping it's gonna change for the better. But I don't think we have, at least today, an adequate sample size to form any single conclusion, right? And there's not a lot of EVs being produced at scale right now.
Right.
You're seeing EVs that are
there are some hints. We have a little bit of inkling that we know things are going to be different. We know
absolutely.
And we talked yesterday about what are the top three things that kind of influence adoption. One is size of fleet. You mentioned that earlier. If you've only got 5 vehicles, it's going to be really hard for you to pull one out and turn it into an electric vehicle, and 20% of your life is going to be totally different. It's harder to do that than if you're a big fleet who also is getting a lot of carbon credits and all sorts of things that are reasons why you would do it. The second is geography. And I didn't bring I have a couple of charts that show how rapidly the range reduces in the dead of winter in certain places, right? So California, Texas, not necessarily, but in Michigan, blah, blah, right? And the third thing is the use case. Like the use case, what are you going to do with it? Like, are you driving around and parking every night, or are you carrying really heavy things, right? Just so there's some things that we know that we can use as markers to while we're getting data that we can say, and some things that we kind of think are going to happen, like we think that maintenance is going to be, well, we know maintenance is going to be different. We think it's going to be cost savings, right? And then somebody tosses a little, hand grenade in there and says, yeah, but what about tires? And so I don't know how many of you all read about it, but it's not just that the vehicle's heavier, it's that the torque, and if you've ever driven, so little side story here, John, I rented a Tesla and drove it. I predicted exactly when I would get there and all that kind of stuff. Got in it. It was so fun. I ran out way early because guess what? You drive faster, you use it faster, right?
Sure. So, absolutely.
And so there's just things that we're starting to kind of build a foundation on which to pack the data, right?
That's for sure. Yep, that's for sure. And I think as the sample size gets bigger, right, and there's more of a mix of asset classes, then I think we'll be able to draw, solid conclusions to a lot of these things relative to telematics, downtime, FMC performance, profitability, et cetera. But it is going to take time, and I just think we need a larger mix than we currently have today.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, we're doing all this data collection in the middle of everything changing too, because for example, my comment about tires. Guess what? Now some of the big companies are creating tires that are specifically designed for electric vehicles. Right.
That's right.
All righty. Well, we have John and I can talk forever, everybody. So let's see if we have any questions coming in, and John, I know upcoming, one of the big events that you're going to be going to, and we actually have a team member going as well, is ACT. You want to tell everybody about it?
Yes. Yeah, ACT Expo. I've been going since I think 2019. It used to be in Long Beach, California for years, and has grown in size and stature. And it's kind of, I think of NTEA as the work truck Super Bowl, and I think
Mhm.
of ACT Expo as the EV and charging infrastructure Super Bowl. So I will be there. We'll have a team of our sustainable development group will be there. Other representatives from Mitsubishi HC Capital America will be there. So we have a number of existing customers that are there at the show. It's a great opportunity to see what's coming.
Mhm.
There's a lot of press release activity that happens at ACT, new product announcements from a number of very, very large players that we're aware of. So it's a great show for I think our industry. We'll be in Las Vegas this year at the Las Vegas Convention Center, May 20th to the 23rd. So we're excited, looking forward to it.
And if you can't make it, which unfortunately this year, I went last year, this year I have a conflict, then go to New Propel in the first week of June, and you'll see a report about what all the big announcements were, and kind of what we're going to have at least one team member there, kind of sorting out specifically for commercial, which this is the one thing about ACT is it's really very commercial focused. This is
Yes.
not, your uh, consumer EV tracking adoption, right? This is businesses and what is influencing them. We'll also be keeping you all up to date on fleet management. So thank you so much for joining us today, and stay tuned for my favorite moderator, Jim Press, as he takes us even deeper into the fleet movement.